Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
The main character, after dying in his previous life, he wakes up inside of Game of Thrones and he is reborn as the Scorpius Rex from Jurassic World. What is he gonna do inside of Game of Thrones?
Here's Wingbait. Moves into narrow ravine. Dragon circles, but cannot enter without landing. Corrin waits. Drogon lands above. Ground shakes. Scent overwhelming. Corrin's body wants flee. He stays. Dragon lowers head near crevice. Eye. Large. Corrin sees directly first time. Drogon sees yellow, eye inside. Neither attacks immediately. Predator assessment. Corrin raises one quill. Drogon inhales. Heat. Corrin retreats deeper. Drogon fires, short burst into entrance. Stone glows. Heat reaches. Corrin moves through side crack. Escape. No direct fight. Drogon tears rock, cannot fit. Eventually leaves. Corrin emerges, burned lightly. Important, Dragon found him and couldn't access due terrain. Terrain defense. He now chooses dens, with narrow entrances stone overhead. Corrin finds. He carries with shield. He learns heat. Better no injury. Drogon returns, agitated. Daenerys sees soot stone dust. Jorah says fought something. Could be sent. Drogon refuses to settle near bronze tube quill after this. Connection. Daenerys suspects northern beast encounter. Now direct awareness. Corrin knows dragon, can choose landing and breathe into cave. Narrow entrance alone not enough. Need multiple exits. He returns to first life lesson. Every den at least 2 escape routes. 1 low stream route, ideally. He maps water. He also learns dragon's fire can heat stone enough to cook him indirectly. Water essential. He stops caching meat in caves with 1 waterless exit. Logistical adaptation. Hunger costs. 1 cache abandoned after dragon scent. He eats less. Body weaker. He chooses to hunt farther from dragon routes. Daenerys' aerial presence displaces him. She has not tried. Corrin hates that. He begins watching dragon patrol patterns. Could exploit Ryder's assumption dragon controls sky. Moves immediately after Drogon passes. Safest interval until next return. A threat becomes clock. Asterisk chapter 36. Skin changes break. The attack began with wolves running in opposite directions. Corrin was feeding beneath a cliff when 3 animals entered the clearing, a wolf, an eagle, and a thin red fox. Their movements did not match their bodies. The wolf looked toward exits. The eagle watched the sky. The fox waited for Corrin to expose a thought. 3 skin changers. They reached together. Corrin felt the pressure strike his mind like hooks. The wolf's hunger pressed against his hunger. The eagle brought distance and cold. The fox searched for the human memory beneath the animal instincts. The body collapsed sideways. Corrin's claws dug into the soil while 3 borrowed senses filled his skull. He could smell the skin changes behind the animals, hear their breathing through the connection, and feel the moment they realized he was not an empty beast. He gave them the burning room. The image of his first death slammed through the contact, the jammed door, the trapped man, heat sealing his lungs, and the refusal that had followed him into the new body. The wolf screamed. The eagle crashed into a pine. The fox broke the link first. Corrin rose. The wolf attacked anyway. He caught it by the neck and threw it against the cliff. The animal lived, but the skin changer inside it fled in terror. Corrin turned toward the eagle. It was already climbing. He fired a quill. The spine struck the bird's wing. The eagle fell into the snow. Corin reached it before it could return to the sky, but he did not kill it. He wanted the humans behind the connection to carry the pain home. The fox vanished. Its human mind had been disciplined enough to retreat. Corin moved his den that night, carrying the dead meat and leaving the wounded wolf alive beside the old entrance. The skin changers would find it. They would understand that contact had a cost. The skin changers did not try again quickly. Corin noticed animals avoiding the cliff and understood that the story had traveled through their minds. He kept the wounded wolf's trail open instead of killing it. Each creature that smelled the old den would carry the warning father. His territory had gained an invisible fence, and for once no human had built it. He could not be possessed easily. He could not assume the next attempt would fail. The knowledge sharpened him and made sleep impossible until dawn. The three skin changers did not break equally. Oral came out furious. The wolf skin changer came out afraid. The fox skin changer came out curious. Sela had touched edge of Corin's mind and withdrawn before the burning room memory hit fully. She told Mance, "It isn't hiding a man." Oral snapped, "You saw him. I saw memory. Human memory. That doesn't make the beast a man wearing skin." Identity fused. Mance listens. Sela explains minds feel layered. Animals, simple impulses plus warg. Corin, animal instinct and human-shaped thought inseparable. Not possession. Oral wants attack via mind. Sela says dangerous. They argue. Corin has followed link traces and approaches camp. He does not know exact people. But eagle scent. Oral's eagle perched. Corin sees. Could shoot. Instead waits until Oral enters it. Then attacks mind through eye contact. Oral pain. Corin follows backward farther than before. Gets glimpse of Oral human body near fire. Now he has exact. He moves physically. Mance sees beast approaching camp edge. Orders no attack. Oral panics. Kill it. Mance says no. Because attack may trigger. Corin stops outside light. Looks at Oral. Humiliation. Everyone sees. Then Corin leaves. But shows he found. Oral furious Mance didn't attack. Mance says, "It came for you because you reached into it." Oral, "So you reward it." "No, I refuse to let your quarrel choose the camp." Leadership. Sela respects. Corin observes Mance separates individual conflict from group. Harder to manipulate through revenge. Later Oral tries alone. Sets mental bait. Corin nearly falls. She sends Animal to observe without intrusion. A raven fox just watches naturally. Corin can smell warg, but no push. He tolerates longer. She learns visual behavior. No memory theft. Information less rich, but safer. Skin changers develop ethics practice differences. Corin reacts accordingly. The lesson, mental contact, isn't binary. Hostile intrusion triggers counterattack. Distant observation may be tolerated until strategically costly. Corin starts sometimes pretending not to notice warg scouts and feeding false behavior. He drags prey toward wrong den. Sela follows. Reports. Later search finds empty. She realizes. He knows when we watch. Mance laughs. Then stop believing eyes are free. Corin's mental security evolves into counterintelligence. Sela the skin changer developed one rule after watching Corin. Never enter a mind that knows you are entering. Oral called cowardice. Sela called survival. She taught younger wargs. Observe through animal senses without pushing self forward. No memory reach. No command attempt. Corin noticed reduced pressure. Animals still watched. But no hook. He tolerated longer. A fox with human attention could cross out a territory if it behaved like fox. The moment it probed, Corin attacked. Boundary based on behavior. Seller tested once, with Raven carrying human curiosity, but no intrusion. Corin let Raven drink from stream. Then moved den anyway. He knew observed. Observation still costs privacy. Seller reported only general movement, not exact den because lost. Mance found method useful. Oral hated. He wanted exact. The disagreement became wildling politics over surveillance. Mance sides cautious. Enough to keep children away, not enough to make it hunt the watcher. Bran independently reaches same. Corin's mental autonomy forces human magic users to develop restraint not because ethical first, but because intrusion retaliates. Eventually, ethics follows practice. Jojen later articulates, a mind that can punish trespass makes consent easier to respect. Not idealistic. Evolution through danger. Corin would hate being educational example. He never knows. Asterisk chapter 37, The Frozen Dead Rise. The corpse stood after Corin had already fed on it. He found the man beneath a cold tree line, armor stiff with frost and blood frozen black at the throat. Corin tore through the ribs, took what meat remained, and moved away when the body stopped steaming. Then the corpse rose. Its joints bent in the wrong direction. Blue light shone behind the eyes. It turned toward Corin without fear, scent, or hesitation. Corin attacked. His claws opened the chest. The white did not slow. He bit through the shoulder and tore the arm free. The dead hand continued clawing at the snow. The body inside Corin wanted to retreat. The mind refused to grant the corpse that satisfaction. He crushed the skull beneath his heel. The white fell. Corin circled it, waiting for movement. None came. He turned toward the trees. A second corpse stood behind him. The white swung a sword. Corin caught the blade against his forearm, tore it aside, and drove his jaws into the throat. Blue frost spread across his teeth. The cold entered him. Corin released the body and backed away. The white did not bleed. It did not react to pain. It only continued toward heat. He used the terrain instead of strength. Corin lured it across thin ice, broke the surface with his tail, and watched the corpse vanish beneath the black water. It still clawed upward when the current carried it away. At the edge of the tree line, living men watched from behind a rock. Corin smelled their terror and the dragonglass hidden in one man's belt. He left them alive. The living would carry the story south. The dead would continue north. Corin returned to the first body and found no meat left worth taking. The living men who had watched the first white returned to the road and found Corin's tracks beside their own. They stopped following. One left a dragonglass shard on a stone as if paying a toll. Corin did not touch it. He moved around the offering and marked the stone instead. The dead had changed the rules of prey. He would not let the living decide that caution meant ownership. For the first time, hunger had met prey that could not be made afraid. He did not like the sensation. He liked the challenge. The first white changed Corin's idea of hunger. He bit dead flesh. Nothing useful. Cold. No fear. No pulse. Predator body recoiled. Human mind became curious. He fired one quill into severed arm. Nothing. No pain. Useless. He tried fire indirectly. A torch from abandoned camp. He dragged white near embers, kicked burning branch. Cloth caught. White burned. Finally stopped. Fire kills dead. But Corin hates fire. Conflict. He may need use feared element. He experiments. Small controlled fire outside den. Claw pushes branches. Awkward. Learns maintain distance. Not sophisticated. Then finds dragonglass demonstration later. For now fire. He learns terrain methods, water rockslide pits. After Corin follows current downstream. White claws ice, eventually trapped. Not dead. Containment, not kill. He realizes dead can remain threat. He moves away from rivers they could emerge. The living men, watching, leave dragonglass later. Before that, one night's watch patrol sees Corin fight White. They almost attack both. Could be John nearby after joined watch. Wait. John observes claws can break bodies, but not sure final. Corin sees John. Both recognize. No attack. A White between changes relation. John tosses torch toward corpse. Not at Corin. Corin backs. Torch catches. White burns. Message. Fire is answer. Corin already knows, but sees human offer tool. He does not approach torch. John says, "We're not hunting you tonight." Corin stares. Conditional. He leaves. The patrol interprets alliance. John corrects. No, we had same problem. At Castle Black, report. Mormont asks if beast can be used against dead. John says, it chose to fight because they attacked it. Do not assume. They try without authorization maybe. Place blood trail. Corin discovers manipulation. He kills one handler, destroys lure. John furious at own men. Corin now distrusts watch attempts. The dead threat gives humans temptation to weaponize Corin. He resists violently. John's unauthorized attempt to use Corin against a White caused the worst argument he had with Gior that month. Not because John did it. He didn't. Another ranger had. But John had predicted. Men will try. Mormont said, then tell them not to. I did. Not loudly enough. Command responsibility. The ranger named Kedge had dragged a bleeding goat toward Corin's marked ravine with White behind. Corin recognized manipulation. Killed Kedge. Goat escaped. White remained. Corin destroyed eventually. Now watch lost man. Some blamed beast. John blamed Kedge. Sam blamed plan. Ed blamed goat. Gior blamed command culture. If a man thinks an order applies only when someone sees him, we have no watch. He makes explicit ban. Do not bait unknown creature. Then asks John, would it ever fight beside us willingly? John says, maybe, not because we ask. Useful answer. But accurate. The watch shifts dead doctrine away from outsourcing. Dragonglass. Fire. Formations. Corin becomes environmental factor. Scouts note location, do not rely. Corin sees less bait. Tension drops. Then a natural overlap. White pack attacks both. John and Corin briefly fight parallel. No coordination commands. John sees Corin using terrain. Corin sees dragonglass stab. He learns faster. At one point John throws dragonglass dagger, not to Corin, into White near him. Corin flinches from shard, but sees effect. Information. John retrieves after. No gift. Corin later creates bone tool. Earned. After battle, John and Corin face. John lowers Longclaw. Corin does not approach. Both leave opposite. Sam asks later, "Did it help?" John, "No, it was there." Critical against weaponization. Corin's autonomy, respected through precise language. It also denies him credit, which his ego may dislike. He doesn't know. But if heard, perhaps. The dead are common threat, without alliance. Later council remembers. Asterisk chapter 38. Whites do not fear asterisk. The white pack followed the blood through the snow without once looking behind them. Corin had expected the dead to move like animals. They did not. They did not pause at scent changes, did not circle windward, and did not react when he broke branches across their path. A living patrol hid inside a ruined watch hut. Corin smelled 6 men, 2 horses, and a child trying not to cry. The whites smelled none of it. They followed the blood Corin had left on the trail. He changed the trail. Corin dragged a dead deer toward the hut, then climbed the roof and waited. The whites entered the clearing. The patrol saw them through cracks in the boards and began praying. Corin dropped behind the last corpse. His tail struck its knees. The white fell, rose, and turned toward him. Another seized Corin's flank. Blue cold entered through the scales and locked the muscle along his tail. Corin bit through its wrist. The patrol burst from the hut too early. Spears struck dead flesh. One man screamed when the white turned toward him. Corin used the confusion to drive 2 corpses into one another and kick the nearest into the hut wall. The child ran. Corin saw the movement and almost followed. Instead, he seized the white reaching for the boy and tore its head away. The child escaped into the trees. The living men did not thank Corin. They ran after him. The last white took Corin's tail in both hands. He pulled free, leaving a strip of flesh behind. The dead thing kept it. Corin climbed the watch hut and watched the blood drip onto the snow while the whites gathered below. Fire would have solved the pack. Fire would also have taken the forest. Corin chose a rock slide. He climbed above the clearing and tore loose the frozen shelf. Stone buried the dead. The living patrol reached the far ridge before dawn. Corin followed at a distance, not to hunt them, but to see whether the dead could climb after him. They could not. The strip of tail flesh left in the white's hands froze before Corin reached the cave. He buried it beneath a cairn rather than eat around the cold. The living patrol later found the cairn and mistook it for a grave. Corin allowed the mistake. A grave made people lower their voices, and lowered voices made the next hunt easier to hear. He carried the injured tail into a cave and slept curled around it. The whites had no fear to exploit. Terrain, weight, and patience would have to replace terror. The child who ran from the watch hut became known to Corin by scent. Not name. Blue wool. Smoke. Fear. He encountered the boy, again days later, with surviving patrol. The boy saw him. Did not scream immediately. Corin stopped. The patrol formed. 1 white behind them. Then 2. Everyone trapped. Corin's choice. Humans or dead. He attacked dead. Again. The boy watched. After, humans retreated. The child remained, because leg injured. 1 man tried carry. White emerged from snow. Corin killed white by smashing into rock repeatedly, buying time. The man carried boy. They leave. Corin does not follow. The child later names beast Blackthorn. Rumor makes ally. John corrects. Did it protect you? Boy says yes. Or fight dead. He thinks. Both happened. Teach epistemic humility, even child. Corin, meanwhile, has tail frost injury. Needs warmth, but fire dangerous. He hunts deer, curls beside corpse before eating. Animalistic. Survival. White's blue cold slows regeneration. He measures recovery days. Normal wounds, 2-9 days. Cold longer. He begins avoiding direct grapple. Uses tail less. Terrain more. One white pack later, he leads into ravine with loose stones. Before rock slide, he tests sound. Dead follow movement heat, not fear. He drives deer toward pack. Dead follow deer. Corin redirects. No moral problem. But deer panics harder. He learns corpses attracted to heat. He can't rely. The biggest change, terror useless. Corin's core strategy from first life fails. Dead don't fear. He must think without fear as control. He spent human life believing fear cleaner than loyalty control. Now enemy immune. He cannot threaten, cannot make witness, cannot humiliate. Only physics. Wait. Fire. Dragon glass later. Good character development without redemption. After rock slide, he looks at buried dead. No satisfaction. They did not know they lost. He hates. Victory without witness feels empty. He begins understanding how much his violence depends on being seen. The dead strip that. Perhaps why he hates them beyond danger. They refuse his meaning. Corin's rock slide against the whites buried one living horse too. The patrol had abandoned it. Still alive. Trapped leg. Corin heard. He could leave. Horse noise might attract more dead away from him. He did leave for an hour. Then the screaming continued. It agitated his senses, made hunting impossible. He returned. Freed horse. The animal bolted. Not compassion, necessarily. Noise control. But a human scout watching from far sees rescue. Again myth. Corin becomes annoyed by unintended morality. He later deliberately kills an injured horse for food in view of another patrol. Not to correct narrative exactly, but because hungry. Humans realize. The same creature freed one horse and ate another. No coherent mercy rule. John says, "Stop asking whether it is good." Sam asks, "What do we ask? What will it do here?" Situational behavior. Corin isn't redeemed by occasional restraint. He is a decision-maker with self-interest, curiosity, debts, hunger, boundaries. More complex. The dead simplify because no such context. Corin becomes foil. Whites always advance. Corin chooses. That makes him both more dangerous and potentially avoidable. Humans learn to read context instead of morality. The whites buried beneath the rock slide did not stay buried. Spring thaw shifted stones. One hand emerged. Then another. The dead had waited months. Corin returned to the ravine and found blue eyes beneath rock. He learned another fact. Time did not weaken them the way it weakened living enemies. No hunger. No exhaustion. No fear. A trap that only delayed was not a kill. He needed final methods. Fire. Dragon glass. Dismemberment plus isolation, perhaps. He approached with crude dragon glass bone tool from later experimentation. At this point, chapter 39 follows, so he hasn't yet developed after observing John/Sam. We should avoid future. He has not, so he uses fire. A traveler had left a torch bundle. Corin drags dry branch. Starts from existing embers, making fire himself with no hands difficult. He cannot easily ignite. He waits for humans. A patrol comes. Sees dead emerging. They light. Corin watches. The patrol knows he is there. No one attacks him. They burn whites. One soldier keeps bow trained on trees. Reasonable. After last blue light dies, Corin steps out. The men freeze. The captain says, "Done." A statement, not command. Corin looks at Ash. Then fire. Then captain. He leaves. That brief coexistence becomes report. John hears later. He asks captain, "Why didn't you shoot?" The man answers, "Because the dead were still burning." Practical priority. No noble philosophy. Good. Corin learns living people can sometimes share a completed objective without trying to convert the moment into alliance. This makes later overlaps easier. The dead, ironically, create spaces where living restraint becomes visible. Corin still attacks patrols elsewhere. No peace. Context only. Asterisk chapter 39. Dragonglass in the meat. John and Sam placed the dragonglass shard inside a strip of horseflesh. They had found the black stone in an old cache near the wall and were testing it on a dead white when Corin watched from the rocks. The shard did not smell like ordinary stone. It carried a dry, sharp scent that made the inside of his nose burn. Sam held the meat with tongs. "It should not be warm," he said. John looked toward the tree line. "Nothing beyond the wall should be warm." The white moved when the shard touched it. Blue fire ran through the corpse, and the dead thing collapsed as if its bones had been cut from inside. Corin understood the danger immediately. The shard was not merely a weapon against the dead. It was a substance that altered the rules of bodies. He backed away. A raven lifted from the rock above him. John turned at the sound. Corin considered killing the bird, then heard the watch patrol approaching from the south. Too many men, too much iron. He remained beneath the overhang while Sam wrapped the shard. The horseflesh dropped into the snow. Corin waited until the men left. Then he crossed the slope, picked up the meat, and carried it into a ravine. The shard had pierced the center. He could smell the cold through the flesh. He did not eat it. Instead, he pushed the meat toward a dead crow. The bird seized it and collapsed before it could swallow. Corin watched the body twitch, then dragged it away from his den. John found the marks the next morning. Sam found the crow. "It tested the stone," Sam said. Corin listened from the rocks. The humans were correct in different ways. He had learned the scent, the effect, and the cost of contact. He had also learned that the watch carried the weapon in wrapped cloth, which meant it could be stolen. John wrapped the dragonglass in 3 layers of cloth and moved the cache closer to the wall. Sam argued that the weapon should be studied. John argued that study was not worth losing it. Corin watched them carry it from the rocks and memorized the route. He could not yet take the shard safely, but he knew where the humans had decided to keep the thing that frightened the dead. That thought was dangerous enough to keep him awake. He did not yet know whether the dead or the living were the greater threat. He knew dragonglass belonged on the map. Corin did not take the dragonglass offering. John noticed. Sam was disappointed. Ed said, "Perhaps it has standards." The shard stayed on stone 3 days. No one touched. On 4th gun. Not Corin. A wildling took it. Corin had watched. Now problem. The wildling had weapon Corin feared doesn't understand. He followed. The man carried shard in leather pouch. No threat to Corin, perhaps. But Corin wants no use. Wildling reaches camp. They test on white. Shard kills. Now knowledge spreads free folk. Corin watches from distance. He had allowed. He avoids. But needs defense. He experiments without contact. Push shard with bone. Wrap in hide. Observe. Wrapped layers reduce scent pressure. Humans already carry wrapped. Could steal safely, using thick leather perhaps. He tries on abandoned shard. Bites leather bundle, moves. No effect through 3 layers. He buries deep. He cannot handle easily. He develops method, push shard with antler into white. Complex but possible. First attempt nearly cuts claw. Second works. White dies. Corin learns tool use without hands. He now can weaponize dragonglass, but resource scarce. Maybe he makes dragonglass dipped bone by forcing shard into split wood and wrapping with tendon using claws teeth. Primitive tool. Humans find dead white with dragonglass shard driven by bone tool. Sam astonished. It made a weapon. John says. Or used one. They inspect binding. Teeth marks. Claw scoring. Made. Now kingdoms understand intelligence undeniable. Corin sees tool as temporary. He hates dependence on human old weapon. But dead require. One mishap cuts skin, painful. He improves external cache routes instead. Keeps dragonglass near known dead corridors, not on body. Strategic prepositioning. Humans might discover caches and steal. He marks. Quills. One hunter steals. Corin kills. Again, ownership conflict. Tools supplement. Asterisk Chapter 40. Southron spears and northern snow. The mixed force should have been impossible to coordinate. Northern men hated the crown agents. The sellswords hated everyone. Robb Stark had placed them together because the beast had learned to break a single command, and Corin understood the plan the moment he smelled 3 kinds of armor around the ruined holdfast. They meant to make the rival orders collide. Corin entered through the smoke. A Southron captain shouted for the archers to fire. Great John Umber shouted for the men to hold. The archers hesitated between the commands. Corin crossed the gap and tore through the nearest spear line. The first man fell, the second held. Corin's claw caught the spear shaft and dragged the soldier forward. A northern shield struck Corin's shoulder from the side. He spun, fired a quill, and watched the shieldman drop behind his rim. "Stop shooting," Robb shouted. The crown captain ignored him. His men released a volley toward the trees, hitting 2 of their own horses. Panic spread faster than the beast could create it. Corin used the smoke as cover. He climbed the ruined holdfast wall, dropped behind the captains, and struck the command standards instead of the men. Red cloth fell. Northern grey followed. Without the banners, the units lost the easiest way to know whom to obey. Robb adapted first. He ordered the northern men to form around the wounded. The Southron captain ordered a charge. The sellswords chose neither and ran toward the road. Corin could have killed Robb. The opportunity opened when the young lord crossed the yard alone to pull a man from beneath a horse. Corin lowered his head, measured the distance, and saw the same refusal that had made Robb stop his fire wagons. He chose the captain instead. He left the rival banners, tangled together in the smoke. By nightfall, the survivors blamed one another for the defeat. Robb blamed the plan only enough to improve it. Corin carried a spear wound beneath his ribs and the knowledge that mixed enemies could become a single danger if someone taught them the right lesson. Robb did not celebrate the mixed forces' escape. He gathered the surviving captains and made them explain which orders had failed first. Greatjon wanted to blame the Southrons. The Southrons blamed the smoke. Corin listened from the ruined wall while the argument rebuilt the same division he had used to break them. He had not won the war. He had learned where the war's commanders kept their pride. He would not give them that lesson cheaply. The mixed force failed partly because nobody agreed what Corin was worth. Northern men wanted him driven away. Southron captain wanted proof of death. Sellswords wanted bounty. 3 objectives. 1. Formation. Corin saw contradiction before first spear. Rob saw after. The aftermath meeting became brutal. Southron captain blamed Rob. Great John threatened him. Sellswords demanded pay despite retreat. Rob slammed fist. Enough. He laid objectives on table. Why were you there? Southron, kill beast. Sellsword, contracted kill. Rob stared at organizer. You built a force with 3 victories. Corin's attacks exploited divergent finish conditions. Rob reforms. If coalition fights Corin again, objective must single. Protect evacuation. Hold road. Drive from camp. Never kill if possible, added. Corin notices. A mixed patrol meets. He attacks flank. They don't chase. Objective, escort refugees. They keep moving. Corin kills pack horse. They abandon supplies, continue people. He cannot redirect with loot. He attacks rear. Guard holds just enough, then falls back. No pride. Corin follows. He nearly bites. Turns. Catches actual route, but too late. Humans adapt. He is angry. He targets command banner. They don't use banner. Hand signals. Multiple leaders understand objective. Decentralized. Corin's classic break command strategy weakened. He switches environmental. River crossing. Attack bridge supports. Now objective forced. Humans must respond to infrastructure. They save refugees across rope while guards hold. Corin gets 1 kill. But not route break. Hard. He learns coalitions with one purpose are stronger than armies with one king but conflicting motives. Fear made obedience, but shared purpose can coordinate without central fear. He sees. Does not admire morally. Recognizes tactically. Corin understands shared enemy can make them dangerous. He plans false direction to break. Tarion appreciates. Deaneries also. By late story, they can share counsel despite factions because objective. Dead survival, not own Corin. Corin's existence paradoxically trains collaboration. He then tries to make direction wrong. Rob's surviving ranger unit created one final tool before war scattered them. A field card. Not parchment for nobles. A small piece of wood with 5 cuts. 1. Fresh quill. 2. Claw sign. 3. Animal panic. 4. Missing food. 5. Direct sighting. Patrols could mark observed signs without writing. Simple. Corin could not easily intercept meaning unless he watched use. The cards improved reports. No dramatic falls, monster here from 1 track. Then Lannister raiders captured cards. Misread. Thought kill tally. Used wrong. A northern scout recovered and realized enemy now possessed method. They changed cut order. Authentication. War drives encryption crudely. Corin sees men carrying marked wood. Doesn't know. He steals one. Examines. Cuts. No obvious. Later watches patrol mark after seeing quill. Learns. Now cards compromised. He scratches extra 6th, cut into stolen card and leaves. Patrol finds. Confusion. Unknown. They discard. Corin has poisoned system through ambiguity once he understood. Rangers redesign with shapes, not simple count. He may learn again, but cost. No modern-feeling jargon required in prose, but mechanism rich. Rob sees card. How long until it learns this one? Scout says, long enough if we're lucky. That's realistic doctrine. Not perfect secrecy. Time advantage. Asterisk chapter 41. Dead men at the ravine asterisk. Corin had filled the ravine with false trails before the dead arrived. He dragged a horse toward the eastern slope, scattered black quills beside the northern path, and left a strip of red cloth on a branch where human eyes would find it first. The living hunters followed the signs from the ruined holdfast, believing they were close. The whites came from the other direction. The dead moved through the trees without disturbing the snow. Corin smelled frost, old blood, and the blue cold that had torn flesh from his tail. He climbed above the ravine and watched the living force enter below. There, a captain said, the tracks. The first white reached the camp before the men saw it. Steel struck dead bone. The corpse kept moving. A northern soldier fell backward, and the men around him broke formation. The living hunters had expected Corin's fear. They had not expected prey that ignored pain. Corin dropped between them. He killed the nearest white with a bite through the skull, then seized a captain by the cloak and threw him away from the dead. The man landed beside the red cloth and reached for it as if it were a banner. The beast is here. Corin used the shout. He drove the whites toward the Southron line, then climbed the ravine wall while the humans turned their weapons on one another's escape routes. The dead did not care who wore which colors. They followed warmth. A white caught Corin's tail. He twisted, leaving another strip of flesh in its hands, and fired a quill into the corpse's eye. The blue light did not dim. Corin kicked it into the path of a charging horse. The animal bolted. The ravine became smoke, snow, and bodies moving in opposite directions. Corin reached the ridge and watched the living survivors flee while the dead gathered around the abandoned camp. He had not defeated either side. He had made them collide, and that was enough. The next morning, the survivors told two stories. In one, the monster had summoned the dead. In the other, the monster had saved them from the dead. The dead occupied the ravine until the next snowfall. Living men avoided the place, leaving Corin a temporary boundary no army wished to test. He returned to the ridge and found one human boot print beside a white's handprint. The two marks overlapped perfectly. Corin stared at them, then turned away. The dead and the living had begun to share roads. He would need new roads of his own. Corin preferred the first. It made men bring larger armies. The ravine became neutral ground only because everyone was too afraid to claim it. The living had lost men there. The dead had risen there. Corin had used both. For 2 weeks, no army entered. Then refugees did. 6 families. No banners. No soldiers. They chose the ravine because abandoned camps still had canvas and pots. Corin found them at dusk. Children. Old people. 2 wounded men. No immediate threat. The body smelled meat. The mind saw consequences. If he attacked, armies might return. If he ignored, settlement could become permanent. Territory. He watched. One old woman saw him. Did not scream. She simply moved children behind cart. A wounded man raised spear. The old woman slapped it down. Do you want it angry? Corin almost appreciated. They stayed one night. Then second. On third, whites appeared. 3. From old snowbank. The refugees panicked. Corin was already above. He could leave. Let dead clear territory. Instead, dead entering his ground mattered. He attacked. 1 white went over cliff. 2nd pinned under rock. 3rd reached cart. Wounded man stabbed uselessly. Corin smashed skull, then dragged body toward old fire pit. The refugees understood. Fire. They lit. Corin backed from flame. White burned. People stared. Now they had seen him fight dead. Hero narrative risk. Old woman said. It hates them. Not saved us. Corin looked at her. She understood enough. At dawn, families left. Not because he drove. Because ravine not safe. They left one pot. Corin sniffed. No value. He pushed it over cliff. Territory empty again. But story spread. Refugees told. The black beast fights dead. Lords interpret possible weapon. Exactly what Corin doesn't want. Then human commanders try, lead whites toward ravine. Corin recognizes blood trails and false retreats. He refuses. Whites continue toward village. Humans expected Corin intercept. He doesn't. Village attacked. Deaths. People blame beast for not helping. Absurd. Corin hears anger without understanding full. He learns dangerous consequence of perceived utility. Humans assign obligation. He rejects. Next time humans intentionally lure dead, he attacks the lurers first. One rider killed. Blood trail disrupted. The dead still come. Corin then handles whites separately. Message he chooses, not commanded. John hears report. Understands. Stop using him as a wall. A lord says, if he kills whites, he kills what enters his ground. Same result. No. John's distinction matters politically. Deaneries maybe later hears. Tyrion says, never build policy on a monster's coincidence. Corin meanwhile sees dead, can accidentally give him boundaries. Ravine avoided. Places blue-eyed skull at trail. Humans avoid. He uses corpse evidence as scare sign. Humans think dead area. Less patrol. Risk draws night's watch. He learns. One marker brings patrol with dragonglass. He abandons tactic. Again, no static trick lasts. The ravine refugees left behind one thing Corin eventually used. A child's wooden cup. He ignored it for days. Then winter froze water in his usual rock hollow. The cup could carry water. He had jaws. Awkward but possible. Corin picked it up. Wood between teeth. Filled from stream. Carried to den. Spilled half. Still. Tool. He hated using human object. Used anyway. He learns containers matter. Wooden cup remains. Until one day he bites too hard and breaks. Annoyance. He doesn't sentimentalize. Discards. But the experience expands too loose thinking, leading dragonglass bone implements. Scorpius body lacks hands, but human mind can improvise. He starts using antlers to move hot objects. Sticks to test ice. Flat stones to cover meat. No manufactured civilization, but tool cognition. Humans who find arrangements realize. A ranger sees flat stones covering cache. That didn't happen naturally. Intelligence undeniable. Some want capture for study. Danger increases. Corin weighs tool visibility. He begins dismantling signs after use. Cover cache naturally. Tool use hidden. Another layer. By late story, he can manipulate environments without leaving obvious human-like evidence. Chapter 42, Drogon above the trees. The dragon crossed the sky at noon. Corin was beneath a shelf of stone when the light changed. The forest brightened without sun. Birds vanished. Deer broke from the trees and ran south without knowing what pursued them. Drogon passed above the ridge. Daenerys' riders searched the old road below, looking for the beast that had become a rumor in their camp. They carried hooks, bows, and jars of oil. The dragon carried the real weapon. Corin pressed his body against the cold rock. The instinct to run fought the instinct to attack. He could not win a direct charge. He could not allow the humans to decide that hiding meant weakness. He waited until Drogon's shadow moved beyond the trees, then crawled to the edge of the shelf. One rider had stayed behind. The man held a strip of black cloth and studied the claw marks on a pine. Corin moved beneath the horse and struck upward. The rider fell without a scream. The horse bolted toward the dragon's flight path. Drogon turned. Corin abandoned the kill. He dragged the rider into a stream and covered him with stones while the dragon circled above. Fire rolled across the upper trees, not reaching the water but heating the rocks until steam filled the channel. Corin held his breath. The dragon searched the smoke. Its head moved with a patience unlike the whites and unlike men. It did not need a trail. It only needed to decide the ground was worth burning. Daenerys called it back. Drogon climbed. The heat faded. Corin emerged from the stream with half the rider's cloak burned away and the horse's blood on his jaw. He looked at the sky for a long time. Daenerys' rider reported that the dragon had burned a valley without finding the beast. She believed the report. Jorah did not. Corin carried the rider's black cloth to a stone shelf above the stream and left it where the wind could take the smell south. If Daenerys wanted proof, he would give her proof of survival rather than a body she could display. The dragon had not seen him. That was not safety. It was information. Corin returned the rider's black cloth to the road and placed 3 quills beside it, warning enough for the next search party to understand that the hidden predator had survived the fire. Drogon's second search did not find Corin. It found his food. A deer carcass hidden under rock shelf. Drogon smelled blood. Landed. Ate. Corin watched from stream cave. Anger irrational. The dragon had taken prey he killed. Territory insult. Body wanted attack. Mind remembered fire. He waited. Drogon finished. Then did something worse. Marked rock with claw. Corin stared. A territorial gesture. Now another predator had written claim in his hunting ground. He moved after dragon left. Sniffed claw. Heat. Ash. He raked his own claws through mark. Then stopped. Maybe scent. Could escalate. He chose not to add quill. Instead moved cash. A strategic withdrawal from claim. That decision annoys him. Daenerys' riders arrive later and find overlapping claw marks. They infer contact. One rider reports dragon and beast contest territory. Daenerys worries. Did Drogon attack? No evidence. Then don't invent. Again, precision. The reckless rider later enters. He follows Black Quill Trail beyond marked pine. Corin attacks horse. Not rider initially. Rider falls. Draws bow. Corin pins. Could kill. Then dragon roar. Corin hears. Not to save. Drogon searches. Corin hides submerged. The rider terrified, unable to move. Dragon passes. Corin leaves him. He will report Corin survived close dragon presence. Also proof humans crossing territory bring dragon. Daenerys receives. She asks rider, "Did you cross marks?" He lies. Another scout saw. Truth. She punishes disobedience, orders no pursuit within marked woods unless immediate threat. Corin doesn't know decree, but notices riders stop at quill lines afterward. Interesting. He tests, places false mark farther out. Riders stop. He just expanded territory through sign. Dangerous. Deaneries discovers maps show marks moving. He's pushing. She changes order. Only recognize repeated established marks, not new single quills. Corin sees some ignored. Humans adapted. Territorial signaling becomes contested. He can't expand cheaply. Then Daenerys herself flies Drogon near boundary. Not attack. Observation. Corin sees rider on dragon. Human and dragon linked. Drogon not independent entirely. Daenerys can recall. If threaten rider, dragon attack catastrophic. Not simple. He hides. No fight. She calls Drogon away before dive. Corin learns she controls at least partially. Daenerys learns Beast chose not to fire quills. Mutual restraint. No alliance. Just two powers, avoiding needless escalation. Jorah says, "You let it go." Daenerys says, "I let Drogon leave a forest he could burn, different." Daenerys' first direct glimpse of Corin lasted less than 6 seconds. From Drogon's back. Below, black shape moved from stream to stone. Quills. Tail. Then gone. She did not order Drogon lower. Jorah on ground later asked why. Because I saw it choose cover before we arrived. So, it was prepared for the dragon. All the more reason to strike. Daenerys looked. Prepared prey is where dragons get hurt. Jorah didn't like comparing. Still, she had lost enough to know invulnerability stories kill. The rider Corin had attacked reported marked trees. Daenerys maps. She orders aerial observation without fire. Drogon sometimes ignores. When he dives, she recalls. Partial control. Corin sees. Now he understands human voice can alter dragon movement. But attacking rider on dragon suicidal. He waits. At camp, Daenerys dismounts. Corin could stalk. He does one night. He reaches perimeter. Dragons nearby. Heat immense. Humans guards. He smells Daenerys. Not special physically, except dragon scent. Political center. He watches. Could kill sleeping queen maybe, impossible due guards dragons. He realizes unlike Joffrey, her power is partly relational. Kill her may free dragons unpredictably. Not necessarily good. He withdraws. Daenerys later finds tracks outside camp. Jorah alarmed. He was here. She looks. No attack. What did it want? Unknown. Tyrion not yet advising maybe later. She doubles guard, but not fires. The mutual non-attack becomes tense. Then Drogon takes his dear cash as above. Territorial irritation. No alliance. Corin ignores, if obvious. She learns food bait, not reliable. She instead leaves empty ground. Corin appears later because root, not bait. She sees from far. Observation. Both increasingly refuse obvious manipulation. Asterisk chapter 43. Fire teaches distance. Corin had chosen the men before the dragon chose them. They were a scouting party moving through a pine valley, 6 soldiers and 2 horses carrying oil, meat, and a map. Corin watched from the ridge, waiting for the rear guard to fall behind. Then the sky opened. Dragonfire rolled across the valley in a sheet of orange and green, The scouts disappeared inside it. Trees ignited. Snow became steam. One horse ran from the fire and burned until it fell. Corin threw himself into the stream. The water was shallow, but the bank was stone. He wedged his body beneath the current and let the heat pass over him. Scales cracked along his back. One quill sac burst, releasing venom into the water. The dragon flew on. Corin emerged when the valley stopped screaming. He found no living soldiers. The map had burned. The oil had vanished. The dragon had killed the prey Corin had marked, and the loss angered him more than the burns. A survivor crawled from beneath a shield. The man had lost his helmet and half his hair. He saw Corin and began laughing. "You are afraid of it too." Corin crossed the ash and pinned him to the ground. The man's laughter became pleading. "It did not even see you." That was the lesson. The dragon did not need to see him. Its fire made hiding a contest of terrain, water, and timing. Corin released the man after tearing the map case from his belt. He carried the case into the stream, opened it, and found only wet scraps. The surviving piece showed roads leading toward the north. He kept it. The survivor from the valley never learned why Corin had spared him. He told every camp that the beast had understood the dragon and chosen water. The story reached deaneries before the next moon. Corin's burns closed beneath a crust of blackened scale. He no longer measured the dragon's distance in miles. He measured it in how much water a valley held and how quickly the wind changed. By nightfall, Corin had moved 3 valleys away. He did not challenge the sky. He did not forget the dragon. Fire had taught him distance, and distance had become another weapon. After Dragonfire Valley, Besser found Corin again. The old healer had traveled with refugees southward. Corin smelled her herbs before recognizing face. He was burned. Again. She saw him emerge from stream. Gods. Corin stopped. Besser looked at blackened scales. Fire. He growled. Obviously. She set Pack down. No fear performance. Come here. Corin did not. Fine, stay there and rot. He hated her. He approached 3 steps. Besser examined from distance. Dragonfire burn, different from ordinary. Edges sealed. Deep heat. She threw salve cloth. Corin sniffed. Applied. Pain. He hissed. Besser smiled. I missed you too. He almost killed her for sentence. Did not. She noticed red scale under rock. Dragon. Corin's quills rose. Right. She did not touch. Besser's caravan had heard deanery stories. Dragons south-north. She tells people. Corin understands words. The Silver Queen has 3. 3. He had seen 1. The world became worse. Besser says, if you're planning to bite one, don't. Corin stares. She laughs. That means you are. He does not appreciate being read. She treats burns over 3 nights. Corin pays with deer haunch. Refugees see. Some terrified. One man recognizes beast bounty. Once tells soldiers for gold. Besser stops. You invite hunters, they bring fire. Fire kills us before it. Practical protection. Corin useful, indirectly. The man still sneaks. Corin smells departure. Tracks. Could kill. He intercepts before soldiers. Pins. The man begs. Corin sees family back camp. If kill, fear. If leave, report. He returns him to Besser injured. Besser furious at both. You went for gold. You, points at Corin, break people because words annoy you. Corin growls. She doesn't care. The man survives. Doesn't report. Corin needs Bessa's camp quiet during recovery. He prevents exposure. Once healed, he leaves immediately. No protection promise. Weeks later, camp raided by soldiers. Corin nearby. Bessa survives, several refugees injured. She says, "It saved me." Another says, "It let Hob die." Bessa answers, "Yes." No hero. Debt selective. Corin's first life, transactional nature persists. Bessa eventually says to John/Tyrion maybe, "It remembers what it owes. Don't mistake that for goodness." Corin hears not. Bessa's caravan eventually reached a fortified village. She entered. Corin stopped outside. Walls. Torches. Too many people. The debt to Bessa did not require following. He turned. Bessa looked back from gate. Saw nothing. She knew anyway. Weeks later, one of Deanery's scouts questioned village about beast. Bessa overheard. "He is not tame." The scout said, "Did you feed it?" "I treated it." "Then it trusts you." Bessa laughed hard. "No." "Why did it bring meat?" "Payment." "That is trust." "No, that is debt." The distinction enters Deanery's reports. Deanery's understands transaction without ownership. Jorah asks whether Bessa can lure. Bessa refuses. "It would know." "How?" "Because I would be afraid differently." That answer unsettles. No plan. Corin far away never knows she protected him by refusing. Important, relationships can affect survival without protagonist awareness. World autonomous. She tells physical observations. Regeneration slow after fire. Cold water helped burns. She hesitates. Medical knowledge about monster becomes weapon. It killed people. No den info. She isn't ally, just refuses intimate route. A hunter accuses treason. Bessa says, "I won't help you turn my cottage into bait." Practical. Eventually, Corin hears hunters mention Old Healer. He realizes Bessa's information is desired. That creates risk to her. He attacks tracking party. Again, self-interest and debt. Bessa sees aftermath. No more. She tells empty words. "Do not leave bodies at my road." Corin watches. Next time he kills farther away. Boundary accepted. Distinct. Asterisk chapter 44. The Night King's cold asterisk. The cold arrived before the dead. Corin noticed it in the stream first. The water froze around his claws, though the air had not changed. Birds fell silent. Even the whites he had learned to smell seemed to retreat from a colder presence moving behind them. A white walker crossed the far ridge. It wore armor that caught no light. Frost formed beneath its feet. A pale sword hung in its hand, and the dead followed at a distance as if they understood rank. Corin watched from a cave mouth. The body wanted to test the creature. The mind remembered the blue cold inside his tail and chose another path. Pride was a human habit. Survival was the older law. The white walker turned toward the cave. Corin withdrew deeper. The entrance was too wide to hide him, so he climbed the ceiling and folded his body against the stone. Frost crawled up the walls. His breath slowed. The walker entered. For a moment, Corin saw the empty face beneath the armor. The creature did not search by heat or scent. It looked through the cave as if distance were not a barrier. Corin dropped behind it. The blade cut the cave wall. Stone split without sound. Corin fled through a side tunnel barely wide enough for his shoulders. The dead followed until the passage narrowed. The white walker did not pursue. It stood at the entrance and watched him retreat. The choice humiliated him. It also preserved his life. Corin reached the far side of the hill and buried the burned forellimb in snow. The wound refused to heal quickly. He marked the ridge with no quills, no bodies, and no boast. The White Walker did not return to the cave, but frost remained in the stone long after the dead had moved on. Corin abandoned the den completely. He carried only the dry meat and the red scale, leaving bones, feathers, and the broken bounty notice behind. A territory could be reclaimed. A body caught in that cold might not be recovered at all. Some enemies were not prey. The sooner he accepted that, the longer he would remain free to become a problem for them later. The White Walker's refusal to pursue Corin disturbed him more than the chase would have. It had chosen. The dead had hierarchy. Agency at top. That changed everything. Whites were tools. White Walker was commander. Fear may be absent, but strategy possible. Corin tracked after recovery. Not close. He found path. Whites moved in lines behind. The walker occasionally stopped. Not random. It sensed something. Corin stayed far. One night, he placed a dead deer off route. Whites ignored. Walker looked. Then continued. Not hunger. No bait. It allowed. Hierarchy permits tools instinct. Corin sees. Could manipulate Whites away from Walker through living bait. But Walker can perhaps redirect. Next test, he drives deer herd across path. Whites chase. If it recalls, Corin learns direct command. Fear-based manipulation useless because Whites controlled. Need attack command node. But White Walker physically dangerous. Dragonglass could kill perhaps, Corin has learned. He needs shard. Prepositions, Dragonglass bone spear. Sets ambush. He prepares narrow ravine with Dragonglass shard under snow. Plans strike when Walker passes. The Walker stops before. Looks at hiding place. It can sense life. Corin realizes ambush compromised. He does not attack. Retreat. Walker sends Whites. Corin escapes via narrow side tunnel. Humans could later find. Corin learns White Walker, senses him through concealment beyond normal. Cannot rely stealth at close range. Need distraction. Living armies might provide. Could exploit human chaos to approach. No alliance. White Walker also learns Corin has Dragonglass knowledge. It may target him. One night, frost marks appear near his den without attack. Corin relocates. For first time, another non-human power drives him out. He hates. No quill marker left. Pride swallowed. He starts distinguishing Whites versus Walkers. Whites manageable terrain. Walkers existential. He avoids unless Dragonglass and distraction. When humans later call him weapon against dead, they underestimate this caution. Tarion asks, if it hates the dead, why isn't it hunting the walkers? John answers, same reason, we aren't hunting dragons with knives. The White Walker's frost mark, near Corin's abandoned den, remained after spring thaw. Not melted. A thin white line on stone. Corin returned months later, just to inspect. No body. No dead. The mark was colder than air. He touched with dead branch. Branch frosted. Brittle. Magic residue. He did not touch directly. He placed one of his shed quills beside. The venom thickened, stopped steaming. Cold neutralized some chemistry. Interesting. Could White Walker cold disable quill? Another reason, direct fight poor. He tested ordinary ice. Less effect. Magical cold, distinct. He stored mentally. Humans later collect frost stone. Sam tests near venom. Discovers 2. Potential defensive treatment. Extreme magical cold could slow poison, but impossible safely. No practical. Still, he uses animal blood. Freezes instantly. The dead commander can create persistent environmental hazards. Not just sword. Corin begins avoiding frost-marked paths. Maps through absence. He sees White's cluster along cold corridors. Predicts movement. He uses to avoid. At one point, a human patrol heads into Frost Corridor. Corin watches. Could let die. He fires Quill into Tree West. Patrol hears, diverts to investigate. Avoids Walker. They think Beast lured. Corin did it for own benefit. Humans west draw Whites west. Still lives saved, accidentally. Rumor heroic again. John cautions. Pattern. Asterisk chapter 45. Corin leaves false trails, asterisk. Corin stopped hunting bodies and began hunting decisions. He took blood from a wounded horse, shed 3 quills along a northern road, and tore a red banner from a dead soldier. Each sign pointed toward a different valley. Each valley contained an abandoned patrol, a burned cart, or nothing at all. The armies followed. A northern force entered the first valley at sunrise. Lannister riders reached the second by noon. A third group of sellswords marched toward the Black Quills because their captain believed anything feared by soldiers must be worth money. Corin watched them collide at a bridge. The northern men thought the Crown agents had stolen their prey. The Crown agents thought the sellswords had betrayed the road. No one had seen Corin, but everyone had brought weapons because of him. He crossed behind the camp while the argument grew. A cook left a pot unattended. A horse stood tied beside a stack of shields. Corin took the horse and kicked the pot into the fire. Smoke covered his escape. The next day, the armies found another trail. Corin had placed the red banner beside the bodies of a dead patrol and dragged the captain's sword toward the marsh. The soldiers followed the sword. The dead followed the soldiers. By dusk, Whites moved through the abandoned camp, while living men searched the wrong ridge. Corin watched from high ground. He did not feel guilt. The living had chosen to chase a sign. The dead had chosen nothing. Both had become tools because tools did not need to understand the hand using them. A raven landed near him. Corin let it stay. The bird carried a strip of parchment tied to its leg. He could not read the marks, but the smell of wax told him a lord had begun paying for reports. He tore the parchment free and left the raven alive. The false trails eventually reached the lord's maps. Red ink spread across the valleys where Corin had never been. Soldiers began guarding roads he had not visited, while unguarded roads filled with refugees. Corin watched the movement from a ridge and chose a quiet path north. The best lie was not the one that fooled everyone. It was the one that made people abandon the truth without being told. The false trails multiplied. Kings named the beast a threat. Soldiers named it a demon. Corin named nothing. He only moved the pieces until the roads belonged to fear instead of banners. False trails worked until refugees started following them. Corin marked an empty valley to misdirect soldiers. 3 families saw black quills and assumed armies avoided that road for good reason. They took the opposite path, straight into a Lannister patrol. Corin watched from ridge. Unintended. Soldiers questioned. 1 family man killed resisting. The rest detained. His deception had changed civilian movement. He had not planned. Not morally enough. But civilians becoming noisy consequence could expose his actual route. He adjusts. Starts placing false military signs, farther from common paths. Then humans adapt by distinguishing. Quill alone, no longer enough. They look for tracks, kills, scent. Corin contaminates. He deliberately leaves Quill with no tracks using branch drop. But Snow eventually reveals approach. He learns use wind-blown drifts. Complex. A northern scout named Halley's becomes good at reading. He can tell fresh quill shed versus fired vs planted. Corin notices patrol, ignoring false trail. Tracks Halley's. Could kill. Next encounter, Halley's anticipates. Corin smells his own old venom. Follows. Finds empty snare. Human has reversed technique. He becomes furious. Learns humans can imitate signs. His signaling compromised. Now he needs multi-factor markers if he wants real borders. Claw mark plus fresh quill plus scent. But humans could still copy some. Border becomes less symbolic, more patrolled. Cost. Elin's early black line worked because small communities shared context. At war scale, quill marks become counterfeit. Still, Halley's sees. Could imitate, eventually. No perfect. Corin stops relying on signs for important den. Use is absence. No markers. Stealth. Humans searching marked territories miss unmarked. He has learned sometimes best claim is invisible. First life Corin loved fear symbols. Now symbols invite exploitation. He deliberately lets names, signs decay. Tyrion recognizes. Information war. Halley's eventually dies not by Corin, but White's. Corin finds body. His old quill in scout pouch. He takes it. He breaks. Closes loop. A worthy tracker ended by dead who don't care about signs. Corin understands living adversaries can become predictable through relationship. Dead erase. He hates dead more. Counterfeit Corin signs became a trade. Hunters sold true black quills. Most were painted porcupine spines. One merchant sold clawmark guides. False. Villagers paid. Corin eventually encountered a counterfeit marker. He smelled no venom. 3 black sticks nailed to tree. A family had paid to mark land hoping beast would keep raiders away. Clever. Corin stood. They were using his fear as private fence. First life Corin would understand extortion franchise. He could leave and let. But then false borders multiply, reducing his signal value. He destroys marker. The family sees from window. Terrified. Next morning, marker broken. Their paid protection worthless. Word spreads. Counterfeit market collapses partly. Then a clever seller starts using genuine shed quills purchased from poachers. Corin smells real. Marker now authentic material, false placement. He destroys again. Humans learn authenticity, not enough. Intent location. A real royal seal stolen doesn't make true order. Tyrion recognizes analogy. He argues. The beast has invented its own problem with forged decrees. Amusing. Jon says. Then stop treating quills as decrees. Policy. Use as hazard evidence, not instruction without context. He adapts away from signs. Again, evolution towards stealth. By late chapter, false trails use bodies' behavior, not just quills. Asterisk chapter 46. The living need a monster. The council met because every lord had begun receiving the same report in a different form. Jon placed a black quill on the table. Deanery set a burned scale beside it. Tyrion brought a map covered in red thread. Northern lords argued over whether Corin belonged to the war, the forest, or the dead. "It is a weapon," one lord said. "Then who holds it?" Tarion asked. No one answered. John looked at Deaneries. "It does not serve us. It does not serve the dead. It chooses its own ground." Deaneries studied the quill without touching it. "Then it is a power." "A power without a banner," Tarion said. "Those are the ones that make treaties fail." Outside the hall, Corin listened from the roof. He had followed the smell of dragons and horses to the gathering, then climbed before the guards could notice the tracks. The voices below were useful. They were not planning to kill him first. They were planning to decide what he meant. He dropped a quill through the chimney. It landed beside the map. The room erupted. Chairs scraped. Men reached for swords. Deanery stood without moving. John turned toward the ceiling. Tarion looked at the quill and then at the red threads crossing the map. "It heard us," Tarion said. Corin crossed the roof while the council argued about fire. He left a bloody claw mark on the highest stone and climbed down the far wall. The council changed after that. No one called Corin a tool. No one called him an ally. They marked his hunting grounds as if they were borders, moved patrols around them, and sent messages warning villages not to light fires in the wrong valleys. They needed the monster, because fear gave their scattered armies a common direction. Corin accepted the gift and prepared to make the direction wrong. The council's first mistake was putting Corin on the map. A large black circle. Known territory. Tarion stared. Known by whom? Northern Lord pointed reports. Quill sightings. Attacks. Dens. John said, half those are false trails. Deanery's messenger added dragon sightings. Circle widened. Tarion laughed. At this rate, the beast owns the continent. They erased circle. Started differently. Confirmed encounter sites. Different marks. Attack. Sighting. Evidence only. Possible false. The map became messy. Corin, listening above, could not see full, but heard dispute. They were learning not to let one symbol own uncertainty. Then question. One lord says bait, dead toward territory. John refuses. Deaneries says if it chooses, useful. Tarion asks cost. Every attempt to force risks turning creature against living coalition. No control. They settle policy. Do not lure unless no civilian alternative and no claim of command. Still potential. Corin drops quill. Everyone panics. Then recognizes theater. Tarion says, continue. Guards look. No hunt. They refuse to let his presence end meeting. That is new. Corin on roof hears conversation continue. His fear no longer commands room automatically. Annoying. He shifts. Scratches highest stone, leaves. No attack. The council later inspects. Doesn't change policy. Corin has failed to redirect with spectacle. After council, he plants evidence suggesting White Walker movement east. Humans maybe follow. But if false, dangerous. He places frost-marked armor along East Road. Scouts detect. Coalition shift small force. Real dead attack west. He can be accurate locally, but humans build too much. Tarion warns. The East group gets destroyed, but West underdefended. Corin watches consequences. He learns councils can be moved with accurate partial truth. Better than lies. He starts using. Drops real evidence from one faction to provoke resource shift. No invented false. King's decisions become prey. Yet coalition also learns. They demand multiple scouts before major shift. Slower. Dead move fast. No perfect. Corin becomes one node in chaotic intel, not master, strategist, omniscient. At end, he sees living planning together makes them stronger against dead, but also more legible as one system. He can attack shared assumptions. He prepares, not ally. After the council marked Corin as independent, one young lord objected. If it has no master, kill it. Tyrion looked tired. Wonderful, we have found the man who has not listened. The lord reddened. Daenerys said, independent does not mean harmless. Jon added, nor killable on demand. The practical question became resource. None. Corin benefits. But there is political cost. Villages attacked by Corin accuse leaders of abandoning. True sometimes. One delegation arrives. My son was taken. Jon cannot say dead, more important to grieving father. Daenerys cannot promise dragon hunt. Tyrion explains safety zones. Not satisfying. Governance under impossible threats. Not hunt. He sees villages abandoned near dens. More space. Could expand. If he does, proves critics. He moves into some. Hunters less. Predation easier. His presence causes displacement. Dark consequence. He remains evil environmental threat. Some small folk hate rulers for conceding. Cult hunter groups form independently. Corin faces vigilantes. They use wildfire. He destroys. Collateral barn burns. Village blame. No clean. Council learns deprioritization, not same as solving. Tyrion suggests designated corridors. Jon uses blackline historical knowledge. They build safe roads with patrol, dogs, bells, fires controlled. Corin probes. Sometimes attacks. Safety not guarantee. Still reduces. No treaty with monster. Just landscape adaptation. Daenerys says, we do this for rivers and mountains. Tyrion. Mountains rarely stalk caravans. Then an expensive mountain. Corin sees infrastructure shift around him. Roads move. Villages relocate. Power. But also pray father. He learns too much fear empties ground. A kingdom empty of people pays no tribute. A forest empty of prey starving villages gives no information. He stops pushing some boundaries. Predatory equilibrium. Still not good. The first village relocated because of Corin did not leave quietly. They cursed him. Then cursed the lords. Then cursed the dead. Their wagons moved east with everything they could carry. Corin watched from a hill. A dozen families. Goats. Tools. Beds tied sideways. One woman walking because there was no room left in the cart. He had hunted near their farms 3 times. Killed livestock twice. A man once. No mystery why they left. The road emptied behind them. Corin descended after dark. The farms were easier now. No guards. No dogs. No smoke. No people. He entered a barn. Empty. The silence should have pleased him. Instead, it reduced value. Nothing to observe. No food except old grain he could not use well. No heat. No rumors moving. He had pushed the prey away. The old human inside him recognized the shape. A territory emptied by fear stops paying. The comparison irritated him. He moved on. The next valley he hunted differently. Deer first. Livestock only when necessary. No humans unless threatened, useful, or curiosity justified. Not mercy. Predatory management. The villagers noticed fewer attacks. They stayed. Corin gained information through proximity. Road traffic. Soldiers. Messengers. A stable population produced more useful patterns than an abandoned valley. Tyrion would have called it taxation without coin. Corin called nothing. He simply stopped wasting territory. Then one lord tried to exploit. He moved refugees deliberately into Corin's hunting zone, believing the beast would avoid dense settlement and thus create human shield against attacks. Cruel. Corin detected new camp. Too many people. He could leave. That would reward tactic. Instead, he attacked Lord's armed escort at night. Not refugees. Killed horses. Broke supply wagon. The escort withdrew. Refugees remained stranded. Now problem. Corin did not feed them. Did not help. But he also did not attack. They eventually moved to safer road. The Lord's tactic failed. Word spread. Do not use civilians as monster barrier. Jon approved. Daenerys called it obvious. Tyrion said obvious things become policy only after someone survives violating them. The council wrote new order. No forced settlement inside known Corin zones for military deterrence. A monster had forced one humanitarian rule into existence by making exploitation tactically stupid. Corin never knew. He only noticed fewer camps appeared where they should not. That was enough. Asterisk chapter 47. No Masters chain asterisk. The plan tried to drive Corin toward the dead. Fire teams closed the western road. Archers waited on the ridge. A line of northern riders pushed him from behind, while a second force held the valley ahead. The dead stood beyond it, silent beneath the snow. Corin understood the chain. The humans believed each group controlled one piece of his movement. They had forgotten that every group also feared the others. The fire team watched the riders. The riders watched the archers. The archers watched the dead.